McBeth, sagtest du?
Die sitzen schon in der ersten Reihe.
Brauche ich nicht unbedingt, aber...
Ja, kann ich auch machen.
Das wäre welcome. Ich will mich nicht davon abhalten.
Ja, mit dem bin ich so intim, dass das an meine Person gekoppelt ist eigentlich. Der wird wahrscheinlich aber dann auf seine Module zu sprechen kommen, aber das kann ich auch abwinken und im Scherz verenden lassen. Das ist, glaube ich, das Beste für seine Situation.
Gut, dann pass
Insofern brauchen wir da jetzt nicht die Kompetenz deiner Person.
Dann lass das einfach so.
Oder wir machen jetzt, du machst die Anmoderation hier und ich sitze dann da drin. Das geht auch. Dann ist es noch eine Nummer kompetenter.
Ja,
was alles so passiert. Wenn du weißt, was alles so passiert.
Habe ich hier.
Ja.
Du kannst ja hier sitzen bleiben und pass auf.
Ja.
Wir starten beide.
Ja, wir starten beide und dann gehen wir rein und dann
gucken. Und dann sage ich McBeth und gleich triffst du McBeth, Ken McBeth und T. Raumschmiere.
Ja.
Alles klar, okay, Day 3 of Superbooth. Day 3. And Day 3 with Superbooth with lots of new workshops, Gesprächskonzerte, Konzerte, and a lot of artists on stage in interviews. Welcome to SUPERBOOTH21.
I have already met Gareth Jones outdoors. That will be on our stage for talk in the auditorium at 6:30. The last thing indoors before JakoJako and Annalise von Even will perform on the seaside stage. JakoJako is an electronic artist now signed as a mute artist and presented by the Miller-Tilmer Foundation to our event, and she is performing with Annalise von Even, who is using sensors at her body, controlling modulars with dancing on the stage. So this will be something very special. Where I just had a longer conversation with a press guy about Frenchies and German, because the Frenchies was already offering products to use your body performance to control audio events 10 years ago, and I was those days their sales guy in Germany, and nobody was buying it over here, and in France it was going very well, and now this idea also arrived at German customers, and I'm very happy to see them doing this.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about the Gesprächskonzerte with Nonlinear Labs and L1 from Belarus.
From Belarus, that's totally new, yeah.
And Acid Rain, Bitwig, and of course Ken McBeth, who is waiting for you in the virtual Gesprächskonzert with T. Raumschnitt.
Yeah, in a minute. And that's very special because Ken is sitting in Scotland, and he is not just an engineer who is offering high-end tools for synthesizer nerds and modules. He's also the one and only who was ready to say, oh, when I was young, I was a punk performing live on stage, shouting out loud and making weird stuff. And this is what does not happen this year, but we will talk about this now on the stage.
And you have to rush to the stage of the auditorium.
Okay, good.
Shall we find out if we're lucky?
I wanted to say, let's check
Raumschmiere doesn't like to drink water, but he already has his beer here, so that's fine. Ken is still talking with his insurance agent. Danke. Ja, ich habe uns jetzt auf die 3 Kameras geroutet. Wir sehen ihn da. Because there's a video running. Okay. Jetzt? Online? What? Are we online? Okay, I can start to talk on something. Welcome to Superbooth, I already said. I welcome a lot on stage here Sinjin and Marco. Can I call you Marco? Yeah. Oh, I can call you Marco. Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Raumschmierer. And this is Sankt Raumen or ST Raumen. Straumen will perform on our seaside stage tonight at 5:30 live with that what is ending up from the vision of having a record release to in this year right now together today with Ken McBeth. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking with Ken McBeth about making music, about the problems you could have if you are a maker of synthesizer modules and you live in Scotland and you have your individual problems on going from your home to your workshop to get things done, being anxious of flying around and whatever. So I very much welcome on board Ken McBeth. Can you hear me?
Hey, Andreas, can you hear me?
He's on the channel. Hey, I see you.
Hey.
Oi.
All right, I think we're fine. All right. Sorry, Andreas, having a little technical problem here.
Are we hearing you through your phone or what's going on?
Nah, I have my laptop on the table. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Excellent. Right, I'm talking to your man on the phone, so I'm a bit, I have to leave you. Christian, you're a good guy. Bye. Right.
That was an applause for Christian up there making the connection.
Yeah, Christian was making the connection, Andreas.
Once again?
I'm just trying to get a bigger picture of you guys. Anyway, carry on.
Hey, I brought your band here, you know?
Yes, I know. ST Roman.
Yes, and ST Roman wanted to kill you now live on stage for not coming to Superbooth. So yeah. I give the role to them. Try to kill him over the internet, or what?
No, I won't never kill him.
That would be too sad.
You explain to me further.
Yeah, so what's the plan for today? You sing a song, or what would you like to?
My plan for today is that I want to discuss with you and Jörg and whoever, I'm open for talking.
Okay.
There is no things to show, but I can talk with you.
Yeah, so we can tell you that we have a good time. The show is running very well. We have a wonderful atmosphere. It could be a bit more sunny. And the first day we had a hard rain. That would have been exactly your program, singing in the rain. But he wasn't there, too sad. And so we will do it for you. There's no rain in here, but you will see the performance of them sooner or later on our channels, and you will be reported about how it was going without you. And instead of coming over to Berlin, you did something else. You want to talk about that?
Coming over to Berlin has been a bit of a problem. I want to be there. I cannot be there. So I've continued working on products.
Instead of, was it a good compensation?
The compensation of it, yeah, I guess it's been good. This is, I don't know what to say. Go on.
So you worked on your modules, no?
Correct. I've been designing other stuff as well. You know, Andreas, I found it pretty hairy. Hairy. That's an old Vietnam, American Vietnam term. It's just a bit scary here. I want to go up to my workshop. I want to do the things, but it's kind of maskless. The COVID is worse here than it is in Germany, okay?
I heard so, yes. Cheers. Cheers.
Ask me some nice questions.
Okay, how's the weather?
The weather is quite nice, probably similar to yours, you know.
Okay, next question. How's the modules?
The modules are fine. I have the dual oscillator in production. The back-end filter I am still working on because I've had... I spoke with Carlo about this, and he said just keep it the same as the back-end filter, you know? Yes. But I've had an idea that I can include my elements filter into that module. Those that will buy it will get the back-end filter. They will also get a sub-filter as well. But I personally am excited about this. Because of COVID, I've been kind of trapped and stuck here. So my mind on design has been going well. So now, you know, when you are selling the back-end filter to these guys, girls as well, they're going to get something far better. And I'm happy with that. How do you feel?
So I can report to those who follow that we've been talking about your modules getting ready for the show, and we wanted to have one here, but the combination of having the Brexit and always 1 week of extra shipping, and who knows where the cartons disappear on their way from Edinburgh to, we skipped that, and I said, make them perfect and then send them. So he's still busy with that.
Exactly, Andreas.
Okay, that was the story about the modules, and now we talk about making music, okay?
Okay, let's talk.
Okay, what's remaining from your record release today, Mr. Raumschmiere?
Are you talking to Captain Raumschmiere or me?
I've been asking Mr. Raumschmiere, but you are very welcome to sing your song now.
Very welcome to answer that question, Mr. McBeth.
Marco.
What's remaining?
We've all been expecting a performance with all three of you, and now Ken is not there. Will you end up in the water then?
Of course.
Of course. Of course?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
It's promised?
It is promised.
Okay. So St. John will hold the synth on the stage.
Dear. Are you really?
So in the end, it's the perfect.
I'm glad you bought that towel.
No, I won't. No, I won't end up in the water because the performance we will see or hear right now is gonna be, how do you say it? A very disciplined and loud performance.
Excellent. I cannot wait, Marco.
You what?
I cannot wait.
You cannot what?
I cannot wait. This is going to be awesome.
It is gonna be awesome. 5:30 on national television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say? You're the best front man ever. And we have Sinjin, the best engineer ever. Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole show is gonna be about you, and we try to we try to
contain that element.
Wie heißt es? Kompensieren?
Ja.
Kompensieren. I don't know the English word.
Try to kompensieren.
As you used to say, fuck it. Yeah. Check it out later.
Marco,
you will be surprised.
Yeah,
and
Marco.
also, there is Allard.
Allard.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a question from the audience. Allard is.
There's a question from the audience.
A question from the audience?
Okay.
No, he's shaking their hand.
No, I don't know.
You want to see the audience? Come on, I show you the audience. So this is the people on the stage, and this is the audience. I don't know if you can see it. I have to make it this way. Sorry. Because of the stativ. There you see Allard. Say hello, Allard, yes, and some others. It's about 50 people. It's Corona compatible, otherwise it would be crowded, you know. We're not allowed to leave more than 100 people in the room. That's why, sorry, I have to get back.
And I'm 50 people.
104. 104 is the maximum, and with 105th guy in the audience, we have to wear masks on stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is 1.5 meter, just that you know.
Andreas,
yes.
That's amazing arena or place that you're in just now. Fantastic.
And there's a few more people watching us, seeing us on the internet. So we indeed realized the live stream. We had hard discussions about, do we want this shit to be live on the net, or do we want to record it and put it on the net afterwards? But I said we have to rehearse it, we have to get it done, and I want to say thank you to the team that really we have got it done and is working. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent.
So it's up to you. Can you then perhaps make a dance on stage or sing a song or what?
Yes, I could, but I don't.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Because we have to go to soundcheck now.
In about 15 minutes.
What?
Yeah, we planned it exactly so you have soundcheck at 4:30.
Okay, then do that. Make a dance.
4:30. Okay.
You make a dance. I do make a dance.
We can make a dance for Ken. Okay.
I like that guy dancing.
Hey, Sinjin, come on. Sinjin, it's for Ken. Okay.
Well, listen, guys.
Sinjin has always his.
Look at that! What a dancer.
That was for you. Yeah, it's up to you now.
Now it's up to you, Ken. Make a dance for us. Come on.
Oh, shit.
No,
don't make a shit, make a dance. No,
stop.
No, I'm not going to do that. In the early lockdown, I was speaking with some Netherlands guys, and I took my trousers off.
To not open the trousers makes you even more sexy.
Yes.
Well, listen, Marco and Sinjin, please, you guys are FB without me. Hello.
Yeah, we are Straumen now.
Yeah,
Straumen. Do you think that you will plan the reunification of Fuckety Buckety then in 20 years on Superbooth 40?
In 20
yes,
years.
Andreas,
20 years,
if we live. Yes.
When he keeps his trousers on,
Could be possible.
It could be possible. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we will keep a place on stage for
So
Superbooth
anyway,
number 4.
all you people that are watching this, ST Roman, Stroman, you have to go and watch it. Powerhouse coming from Sinjin Mantle and Vocal Mania coming from T. Ramschmeyer.
I think it's funny. He's always saying T. Raumschmeyer. Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Schmeyer.
Schmiere.
Schmeyer includes Meyer, and that's a common German name, and that says to me, in truth, he's called Mr. Meyer. T. Raumschmeyer.
Mr. Schneider, Mr. Meyer.
T. Raumschmeyer.
Mr.
Mantel.
Mental.
Meyer, Mantel, Schneider.
New band next
You're
year.
Andrew Taylor, Captain.
Me? What?
You are Andrew Taylor, Andreas Schneider.
Yeah, I heard of. And I'm unfortunately just having a job. Otherwise, I would go with these gentlemen on stage and take a bath at the end to compensate your absence. But I can't, I'm sorry. So it's up to you, so to give us a wonderful performance.
We
later
will,
on.
for sure.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will, for sure.
Boys, you do it.
Yeah, of course.
Good. So tell us a bit about Scotland.
Well, Scotland has got similar weather to you just now. Scotland has high coronavirus.
Are you still busy with the separation from the UK?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about this, Andreas. To make the point to your audience, I'm thinking Brexit has been one of the worst things ever. I am thinking that now I manufacture in Germany to stop the VAT and the checks on products and stuff like that.
You would be not the first to move to Central Europe for production.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I think of Colin Fraser and his wife, and I think of Mark Verbos from the States. It's not something that I want to do permanently, but I have to do my work, you know? Yeah. And shipping goods out and making things happen is tricky. Now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But times are getting better again, and we already talked about making changes in your way to get products out of the house, and we're busy with that. And people are waiting for your modules, but I promised you we teach them to wait and until you have it perfect. And
yeah, well, I'm sorry about that, Andreas. That was one of the things that I was worried about this interview. You know, where are Ken McBeth's products? They are there. My printed circuit boards are all ready. Everything's ready for assembly. I've just a tricky time.
Yes. So, you thought you were thinking about preparing a file for us or preparing a concert, but we skipped that, no? So
yeah,
it's their role to make that. Yeah, we already had the performance with dancing. I think that's enough.
Yeah,
that was the concert. So thank you for accepting that as a concert now. But that's the whole tune.
I can do another one.
Marco.
The T. Raumschmeyer dance style. Thank you very much. Yeah. Woo, 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 woo. If you want to see more, that's on the Seaside stage at 5:30.
All the best to you guys, Superbooth people, and people that are coming to see. All the best. And all the best to my guys, Marco Haas and Sinjin Mantle. They're going to make an amazing show.
Yes, we will. And it will be dedicated for you.
I know. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Tune in
All right,
because
boys.
is it live? Is it live on the internet, Andreas? Is it live on the internet?
Yes, it's live on
It's
the
live
internet.
on the internet, Ken.
Yes, it's
So
live on
make
the
sure
internet.
you
I
have your
got to watch
modem
that.
going on.
It's live on the internet.
All right, boys, you get on.
Yes, we go on.
Bis gleich.
Sinja and Mantle, another last word.
When's the next Superbooth that we could perform at?
In May. The next Superbooth is in May. And we will
Yeah,
have
well,
sunny weather because it's springtime.
Next year?
And May 22.
Next year.
Just half a year from now.
Okay, cool.
So we go ahead, and we can be happy that we don't do it every week, but every half a year now. It's an exception because we swapped the current Superbooth from May to now, and the next one will happen in May again, and then we will have Super Grail. That's a guitar trade show.
Yeah. So
May
Andreas, what happened to Super Grill?
Super what?
Yes, Super Grill. What happened?
There's the guitar companies popping
Yeah.
up, and all those little makers of handmade guitars where you can go into a shop and say, hey, I'm your client, I want you to make from this tree in my garden my personal guitar that is made for me with electronics in or whatever. There's a few already here on the venue to get in touch with us and to learn. And then 1 week later, there will be the Synth show. And so we're planning to have a combination of small trade shows, as this is a small trade show, but a very competent one with selected partners. And to make it affordable, and this is the biggest problem with such in Corona times, we are searching for new concepts. And this, what we people who are present feel outdoors, is having exhibitors not next to each other, but 2 meters place, and then there's the next one, and then companies out in the tent, out in the huts, in the forest, is a big success from my personal point of view as one of the board members here. And the Superbooth could be an example for trade shows, at least from my opinion. And we will go ahead with that, also with a mix-up of having a festival with clients like these people using the stuff on stage, promoting the music that comes out of it, going to manufacturers such as you, Mr. Ken McBeth, and saying, I want this with that knob, and why didn't you have this button in there? This didn't happen 10 years ago, yeah?
You just called me a client.
Huh?
You called me a client.
Yeah, I could also call you different. Call me names. Call me names, and I could also call you a pop star. Yeah. Is that better?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay, I repeat the sentence.
I can do the dance again.
Okay, a little bit of pop. Okay, let's pop it. So you make a pop star performance today. Yes. Are you a popper?
In 1 hour.
In 1 hour.
In 1 hour.
I cannot wait. Marco, I cannot wait. It's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Ken, I cannot wait to see you again. And I hope...
I cannot wait to be in the studio again.
Yeah. Everything is prepared.
And one last
you.
word for the record, you know, that I see you made the record and it's out now?
What? Yeah, our new record, Straumen. It's out now. Today is the release day.
Yes.
We have some very limited 7 inches at the merchandising desk. Yes, but you can also buy it online on Bandcamp. Straumen, just check the internet, I guess.
You will play the best hits of Straumen today on the Seaside
No, we
stage?
play the complete album.
Okay.
And after that, you can decide if you buy it or you kill us.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was Straumen live on stage.
Excellent.
To prepare their
Marco.
workshop on the stage. They have to go for sound check now. Online, this was Ken McBeth, and thank you very much.
Excellent,
Vielen Dank,
guys.
bis gleich.
Excellent. My God. Oh my God.
Hi, I'm Dave. What I've got here are some clips and some instruments, and all I want to do is perform a little bit with them using Bitwig to take the clips and turn them into something else. It's one thing to perform and have a ton of things set up. It's another thing to have just a few clips that actually evolve and change over time. We're going to look at a couple things. Some operators that are in Bitwig that control when audio or notes do play or don't play, which is interesting. But maybe we'll just start a little bit in a patch over here with the grid, which is our virtual sound design environment, our modular environment. So when a system is really truly polyphonic, what's interesting is when I play the notes can actually control the entire rhythm. I was playing all those notes together, but now if I break them up in time a little bit, so there are some different opportunities there, whether I want to make this. Maybe. Why would you make it so clicky? Well, maybe over on my aux. Yeah, why not? Okay. Still, a little too much. Soften it. I have some notes, and again, like we said, the timing of them is going to determine the rhythm that's happening between them. So that's something a little bit playful to begin with. And if I'm trying to do performance, I'm just trying to get something a little bit playful that changes a little bit each time. So maybe if we take some basic, very basic drums on top of that. Super basic. My loop is 1 bar long, which is exciting to me because it fits on the screen. That's what's exciting about a 1 bar loop. And I want to work that way. So let's take a look at these operators that were mentioned a minute ago. I've got this snare drum. It is hitting once, it is hitting hard. And if I look over in the corner, I've got this section called operators in the inspector. There are basically 4 modes here, and we'll take them one at a time just playing with drums for a minute. So I've got this snare, and the most sound designy one of this is called repeats. If I say maybe I want this 9 times in the note, and I can kind of see the lines within the note. Shift the timing, ramp down the velocity. Now, that's kind of fun, but again, this is happening too often. I don't really want to be dealing with 1 bar. I want to think in units bigger than a bar. So I'm going to go ahead and take a second operator here. This bottom one with the repeat sign is recurrence. How often do I actually want this to play? So now I'm going to be counting how many times the loop actually cycles and deciding on which of those events do I actually have it trigger something or not. So here just be, the first, the second, the third. I could go up to 8 and then program in each of 8 loops whether this individual note or piece of audio plays or not. Let's keep it simple. I'm going to go with 3. So we should hear it the first time and not the second 2 times. And maybe this open hi-hat could benefit from something similar. Okay. So now, if I deselect it, take a look at these notes. They look dim. Oh. And now they're happening. So there's something in the visualization already that's showing me when these are going to happen and when they're not going to happen. And for my money, when you actually get something like that where you can actually see the sound before you hear it, it feels more like an instrument. It feels more like something that you can perform with. I would humbly submit. So let's go. Oh, let's be typical. Let's splatter some hi-hats. Yes. Always? No. A second operator is chance. So I can basically set a probability for each of these events individually. It's also represented down here, kind of like velocity is. So if I drag it down, now we're in like a 20% range, something like that. So 1 out of 5 times each of these notes will sound. Do they relate to each other? No. Again, I'm going to hit play. Just look at those outlines. That's something. It feels alive. I'm not trying to program these exactly. I just want them to change a little bit over time. So let's take the same notes. Maybe. Oh, no. Copy, not move. Okay. So let's make them a lot more likely up here. Maybe too likely. Bring it down a little bit. And related to operators and this idea of when things trigger, how they play, we've also put in this idea called spread. So anything that's automatable inside of a clip, in this case we're just thinking velocity, that's simple. Instead of dragging it, I could alt drag it. And suddenly for each of those notes that are selected, you're seeing the bottom and top range of what's actually possible. So every time the playhead passes, it will randomly pick a value inside of that range. That's enough for me. And I'm just going to take a chance, use the same pattern, why not? And grab a slightly different operator. So the last operator, there are 4 modes. The 4th one is occurrence. It is simply saying, when will this note or audio play? When will it occur? And it's the easiest because it's just a flat menu. So what I'm going to do here is go with one of these bottom options. It's really a performance gesture. So I'm going to say, when fill is on. What is fill? Well, it's a button up here in the transport that is global and available, and I could map it to my hardware right here now. So now, whenever this button is pressed, certain notes are going to play. We're on an alternate timeline suddenly. And when I let go, those notes won't play. Similarly, I could set other events to say, oh, well, only play when it's off, only play when it's on, don't pay attention. Now I've got one simple way to control things and actually shift them in a different direction. Because again, when I'm performing, I'm probably going to be doing something else, so a minimal control to affect the music is kind of what I'm looking for. It's not in. I'm not pressing fill. There it is. Maybe make it a little more likely. You know, we're on a stage. Let's take all those notes. Let's just say, hey, how about the panning value for each individual note should also spread randomly each time. Everyone on your iPhone at home, it is stereo, I promise. So, we've got something here. We've got all of these operator modes that kind of create something irregular. If I was just looking at those first two, so, every third time play this note, every fifth time play this note. This isn't a 1-bar pattern, this is a 15-bar pattern, which is more interesting to me than a 16 or 17-bar pattern. But once you add the randomness on top of it, the performance element, none of this is necessarily ever going to happen again. It might be completely different each and every time. Lots of feedback. Because sometimes your oscillator just needs to feed into a different oscillator, needs to feed into a different oscillator, etc. So, I've got a bass part here. Let's explore for a moment that last operator mode, the occurrence mode that we looked at briefly. Because what's interesting here is there were a lot of choices. So I've got a simple bass line, just note up, let's go, it's mono, it returns to the original note. That part's nice, because mono is fun in a way. If a note doesn't happen, the original note sustains. If a note does happen and it's short and it lets go, it goes back to playing the original note. It's kind of a nice safety net for programming these things. So what I did was I took the same clip and added a little bit of an ornament onto the end of each line. So if I were to listen to all of this, it is too much. So let's just listen to it with the music. That is too much. It's a little bit interesting. When I'm looking at these operators and it says when an event plays, without the operators, the events always play. So putting these in, you're really just saying things are going to happen less often, which doesn't sound that exciting until you start thinking about how you approach this as a musician. You start with a lot of ideas, and if you send all the ideas out at once, if you trigger everything at once, it will sound awful. So it's an interesting way to try to teach the computer to be a little bit composerly while I'm ideally playing something else in the end. So I'm going to take this apart for a minute. I'm going to take these little ornament sections, and not the first note of each one, but all the following notes. I'm going to grab them because I can put them into one simple mode. The idea of with previous. The part that's interesting to me with operators is giving a relationship between your actual notes or your audio. So now that these are all saying without previous, well, what's the previous? That's this note here, that's this note here. So now, if that initial note of each of those phrases happens, the following notes will also happen. They're going to be treated as a whole block. If I set this to random 20%, then you're only going to get one or two of each note playing, and that's not a phrase anymore. That's just kind of, that's something lost in the transom. That's some weird transmission. So what do I want to do for triggering each of those individual ones? I could set it to a probability. I'm going to go back and use fill again. I'm going to say when the fill button is pressed, if it's held down and it makes this note happen, all the notes that come after will also happen. But if it's not, then I just don't get this little flourish, this little ornamentation. So again, I've got two knobs here, one making the bass an octave, pads, one making the bass an octave lower, one putting us in fill, and that's enough to control what's going on so far. So just at the beginning is enough to trigger that whole phrase. a way to take this little thing and put more information into it, and then I get to perform and decide when it will occur. Finally, what do I want to do while this is happening? Well, I have a very simple patch. It's performing like you'd kind of expect. I have pitch tracking on the oscillator. If I were to turn it off, I have pitch tracking on the filter. So, I don't know what you do for fun. I like to play a keyboard incorrectly. So, I'm going to turn off pitch tracking on the oscillator, and I'm going to manually bring in the pitch signal and open up the attenuator, and I will hear exactly the same thing. That's what that tiny little icon is saving me from, is wiring up every oscillator with a cable and using the input port. So it's working exactly the same as before, but now that it's a signal, I can process it. And I would like to process it in the simplest way possible. I'm going to grab a sample and hold module and say, when this comes in, if it was the very first gate played, let the pitch go in. But if I was already playing a note, ignore the pitch. Don't use it anymore. Because I want to play the oscillator with my first notes, and I want to play the filter with all my successive notes. And maybe that's something, if I can't reach all the notes, I've got a switch here to make the oscillator lower, to put the harmonics closer together, or to put the filter up an octave higher to hear different harmonics. And they're already on the keyboard. Because what else do you do to solo at Superbooth? Let's do it.
So that was the fabulous Dave Linebank from Bitwig Studio. And you know, I think why Bitwig is such a great DAW DAW. I love it.
Yes, so that was another Gesprächskonzert. It was recorded, I think yesterday evening.
Yes.
At the Fuchsbau here on Superbooth 21. And before we will have another virtual Gesprächskonzert with a partner from the USA who's probably still on the coffee. He's at something like 7 in the morning over there. That's Acid Rain, a new young company. We will have a little report about the Bungalow Dorf, what is a village of huts, little huts in the middle of the forest, where we have placed about 9 to 10 or more manufacturers, and where's the real good mood at the end of the Superbooth in the evening, where we all have a beer and say, wow, good thing. And here you see a few impressions of what's going on there during daytime. See you soon.
Make sure that every parameter can be modulated
on the same time.
Exactly.
Flow slide, yeah.
We also have a second page here which shows all the expressive with a click on the MIDI learn, obviously, so you could just do that like that.
Colin from SCHNEIDER did assembled a board with us, and he was explaining that to do this high-level microprocessor thing with touch screens and whatever, that he had to do this. And
we have only eagle and no elements.
But it's also problematic, like when the people are assembling.
So the problem is the real question is how much tolerance do you have? If you can be plus minus
Appropriate.
Impressions from the Hüttendorf on Superbooth 21. This is about 9 heads. You just had a little impression of 3 out of these 9 heads in the middle of the Hüttendorf, and there's more to come tomorrow, and there's some we already had. And next step is now a virtual Gesprächskonzert with one of our partners who couldn't join, being here with us on Superbooth. And this is the company Acid Rain in Seattle. Welcome on board.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Ryan. Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
How are you?
Doing pretty well. Still waking up on my time.
Okay, but you just had a coffee?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Okay. Well, what I think was really funny, we were thinking about the name Acid Rain. Is this something with drugs? And the answer of him was really, really nice. He said, we really don't take drugs. We are boring engineer designer nerds.
You don't look like that.
Yeah, looks can be deceiving. We spend all our time soldering. I was gonna joke that if there's anything, it's solder fumes, right? But yeah, we're. I mean, acid, the type of music, which I guess has its roots elsewhere.
So it's meant to have the acid as the style of music that could be made with your modules.
Maybe. Honestly, we came up with the little raindrop logo. This little guy first, and then we worked back from there for the name. It's all made up.
It's like the acid smile with a wet.
Yeah, with the little raindrop. Yeah.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit about the modular scene in Seattle?
Yeah. It's a great city for modular. Honestly, there's a fantastic shop called Patchworks in Seattle.
Sounds good.
That hosts a lot of events, especially before COVID. But that's kind of getting back a little bit these days, off and on. And there's been a bunch of people who've met through Discords and chat all the time, every day, about modular. There's a very vibrant online modular scene, but even online with people locally in Seattle. So I think a lot of it started during the pandemic, and we can't wait to all do events together in person once things can happen like that. Yeah, and we were doing, just before the pandemic, there were several live modular synthesizer kind of club nights in Seattle as well that were starting up. So hoping to get that back up and running again, because a lot of what we do at Acid Rain Technology is about playing live music with modular. And
yeah, this is so wonderful here with SUPERBOOTH21. We had, after this long time of lockdowns, here every day you can enjoy, I don't know how many concerts with modular stuff and everything else.
yeah.
At Seebühne, Gesprächskonzerte, and the Finnhütten.
We're having a good time. Have you ever been here for Superbooth?
Yes, we were there in 2019, our
the
first
big
super
one.
booth.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. We've been anxious to come back ever since, and next year, we hope.
Okay, we try our best to get you over.
Yeah.
So you have some new stuff going on.
We do.
You want to show us? I see
Sure, yeah.
Your modules have a a focus on the category like control and mixing. See, there's also a polyphonic oscillator, but most of the modules are in this control mix thing.
Yeah, our
like
most recent one.
Like this, and what I see, it's they have a great flexibility, but in a compact design. Like this, I like very much the navigator, for example. So it's a manual control. It's for balancing, but also you can use it as a polarizer for ring modulation like sounds. And yeah, I'm very excited about the new module you want to show us. It's the junction.
Yeah, totally. That's this guy here.
What is the an attenuator?
Yeah. So it does attenuverting, so polarizing, I guess is the more technical term for that. It's a quad polarizer, and all of the inputs on this left side are normaled, so they're like a multiple, buffered mult, and then all of the outputs are cascaded mixing on this side. So what you can do with this is you could plug in like one LFO to this input and send it to 4 different destinations, all with different polarization, or say an envelope. So if you have a module with a lot of CV inputs but no onboard attenuation, this can become a way to create some complex modulation and dial it into the sweet spot. So it's similar in function to the navigator, but kind of a different user interface and different options in terms of the normaling and multing on this side. And this one's currently available.
And do you solder them yourselves still now, or do you ask them to be shipped from wherever? How do you get these modules to you?
Made? Yeah, I do all the production here these days. It's been a kind of crazy time back in 2020 figuring out production. Things got very challenging in terms of staffing manufacturing places and getting parts. So I ended up bringing everything in-house, and you can see behind me a soldering station. And that's where I work all day long, putting these things together. I have some help these days as well. So yeah.
Are they available as DIY kits as well?
This one won't be a DIY kit. No, yeah, we don't have the bandwidth to support DIY kits at the moment. We hope to get the Navigator kit back in stock at some point. And maybe in the future there'll be more kits once we have a bigger operation.
So will you make some music for us, or what's the plan?
Yeah. I can. I wanted to introduce one more module, if that sounds good. Yeah, this is a Superbooth exclusive, brand new prototype of our next big module here.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one is called the Constellation, and it is a parametric trigger and gate pattern generator. So kind of in the spirit of the Maestro here on the right, it's a way of programming interesting trigger and gate patterns without like directly step programming like a XOX drum machine. So it's got 8 channels and 8 outputs and 8 CV inputs, and it's got clock and reset just like Maestro, and each channel has 8 patterns here. So let me load up a pattern to show you how these work. So what you do is each of these patterns is kind of a Euclidean pattern generator. So if anyone's unfamiliar with Euclidean patterns, that's where you take a length of steps, say 16 here, and you divide it into a number of events. So if we did 4, that'll give you 4 even divisions. But when you put something like 7, you get these kind of syncopated rhythms. And the way Constellation works is you combine multiple Euclidean patterns together to create more dynamic and longer and interesting patterns. So we'll add a second pattern here. And on the second pattern, say we could do a length of 32, put 1 event, and we could add a burst of 5 events, so adding 5 events right after that single one, and rotate it 28 steps. So now you can hear there's kind of a fill at the end of this pattern. Yeah, so we'll have burst, ratcheting, so going faster than the clock. You got probability, you can go from 0 to 100. We'll have a clock divider, and you can use, to combine these P1 through P8 per channel, you can use different logic operations, so AND, OR, and XOR. So that combines these pattern events in different ways. If I XOR, it kind of drops out at the end there. You can also, if I load this one here, we've got a pattern going to a synth voice here. Okay, I'll turn it down a bit so you can hear me better. And you can choose to have these patterns play a trigger pattern like that, or press this flop button, and that makes each trigger of the pattern flop a flip-flop back and forth to create interesting gate patterns instead of little staccato trigger patterns. So yeah, still working on some of the features for this guy, but everything can be saved and loaded like the Maestro, so you can change up these patterns very quickly and on the fly. And we have this interesting thing called live mode, so I can demo that for you in a second. That allows you to temporarily change between the save slots as a momentary function, or temporarily mute and unmute the channels, so you can play it kind of like a keyboard. So if I hit the live button, I can move to a different pattern and back, or bring out some of the voices, some of these drum voices, and bring them back in. bring a synth in. So you can really kind of jam on it like that. We've got, yeah, like I said, more features that we're adding into this thing and fine-tuning, bug testing, but that's the general idea of what we're working on these days.
But this is a straight trigger sequencer, or does it also CV? Because there was a melody.
Oh yeah, so that that was a gate pattern driving a LFO through a quantizer here. So it's just triggers and gates for this.
I see. And you just mentioned probability. You can have some steps that play and some not. Like
Exactly. So you could have, on a given channel, you could have, say, one pattern that's just playing a very straight, you know, normal Euclidean rhythm that repeats every time. And you could have another pattern that plays a different rhythm on top of it with a low probability. So it'll throw little accents into your pattern intermittently.
I see, but the probability is just for the whole line then, not for single steps.
Yes, just for the whole pattern.
I see.
But you have 8 patterns you can combine together. So some of your patterns can be very, very sparse.
Yeah, anyway, you have patterns till the end of the year, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'll have almost unlimited save and load slots too. So you can save, you have 20 slots per bank and 999 banks. So.
Okay, so that's in the end, it's the drum machine without the drum sounds.
Yeah, patch your own drum sound.
And you say this is quite new, so that's a release now to say this is coming. But as we all know about the crisis of getting spare parts, did you plan this to be released in the next few months and you have already everything at home? Or is it to now going ahead, ordering parts, and then you find out if that's possible or not?
Yeah, we are just about to order parts for it. So we will find out in the next few weeks the timeline for release and the exact pricing based on prices fluctuating up and down.
I heard from plenty of others that this is the biggest problem for all the manufacturers. Let me please ask you towards the end about the current products that are available from you already.
Yeah, please go. Do you have a specific question or just?
Sorry? No, it was just a question to also. So this is coming somewhere next year, and this is the release. And your other products are available already in Europe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Thankfully, we have the Maestro and the Navigator and the chainsaw, the polyphonic oscillator. And we were able to order enough parts several months ago to keep those in stock. Okay. So I've been busy building those. Thankfully, at Eurorack production quantities, it's still possible to get certain parts in smaller lots. So we're able to keep running here. Thankfully.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's an important question overall at the trade show about is it really available or is it a dream to come? I'm sorry I have to interrupt, so to now say thank you that you've been on board here. We're already going to the next theme. We're having an interview with Daniel Miller and JakoJako next in about 3 minutes. So you have one. Did we forget something now?
I don't think so.
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
So this was Ryan from Seattle in the USA, where there's a big scene of modular nerds, makers, and party people probably who are waiting for the end of the Corona times to celebrate again, but they are busy making new modules. And this was the introduction of his new pattern sequencer. What is it called?
Constellation.
Constellation. So the constellation is promised from Seattle. Thank you very much,
Great.
Ryan, for doing it. And this was
Thank you
your
so much
audience,
for
by
having
the
me.
way.
Thank you.
This is where you were. And yes, and the next will be an interview with Daniel Miller and JakoJako that we will make from outdoors. And therefore we now see a little file in between, giving you some impression about the truth of Superbooth.
Hey Daniel, we're online.
Oh, we're online, okay. So welcome to Superbooth. Sibel, JakoJako, and Annalise van Heaven.
Thank you.
For those customers of Schneider's Laden, Sibel needs no introduction. She's working there as a great demonstrator and really showed me a lot whenever I've been there to look for a module.
Yeah, this is actually how we met.
Yeah,
like I think you needed an update for the nebulae, and this is how we got in conversation.
Exactly, yeah. And Annalise, let's talk about what you're doing today, because you're working together for the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so maybe you could talk a little bit about what the performance is going to be like today.
Okay, well, JakoJako, Sibel will create an ambient set, and I'm basically having a movement response to her music in a contemporary dance improvisational way. Also like telling a story through my body and trying to narrate in an abstract but also somehow narrative way. And I also will wear patches from Instrument of Things that are audible, so my movement will be audible. So
Okay.
I'll also add, or I'm basically another instrument to her live set.
Yeah. So will you be actually controlling the modular through the patches, or is it a separate sound source?
Maybe I do the technical thing because I
Okay.
did the patch. So she will have for different parts of the set her own sounds.
Okay.
And this is how we basically improvise. So I'm doing something, she will react with her dance, and the dance will react back to the modular. So it's a little bit
like a loop, a feedback.
it's like a loop, and it's a conversation, and that's there are a lot of parts improvised. And I hope everything will work out, because the sensors are connected via Wi-Fi to a module in the rack.
Okay.
And I think people can log in with their phones into the same Wi-Fi. And I think if too many people are doing that, gonna have a problem.
Yeah. Well, that
But
sounds fascinating. Yeah, that sounds very, very interesting. Is that something that you've worked with before, or is this something new to you as well?
I did a few patches just at home, but it's like really close to the modular, and I just did like a little bit of finger movements.
Yeah.
But when we started doing this together, it was a completely new thing.
Yeah,
great.
this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I think we first met like in the middle of August
Okay.
to just test it out in her room.
And get patches.
And
like,
get patches,
to
yeah.
make it also sound cool and not just like I didn't want to have like random sounds or noise. I wanted to match it with something musical.
Yeah,
Something that feels cohesive.
right. And how did you meet? I mean, how did you get together in the first place? How do you know each other?
I think I saw her in a performance in Funkhaus.
Okay.
She was playing for Floating Points. She was dancing for Floating Points with a friend of mine, Alvin Colantes, and they are mutual friends.
Okay.
He's a Filipino Gaga dancer, and and then I was actually really how's it called, impressed by her how is it called? Expression.
Expression,
No, not only the body, also the face. It was really emotional, everything. And then I thought like, oh, interesting. So yeah, we got together. I just asked her, and she was directly keen to do things.
Yeah. Well, we're very excited to see
Yeah.
what happens in a couple of hours. Yeah. As this is Superbooth, I have to ask you a few module questions.
Oh, sure, please.
I know you're. And what are you going to be using in your setup?
I usually always use the same setup as I have at home, just without a computer. I have my Octatrack as a sequencer and clock source, and then I have a modular system with a little bit of different modules than usually, and analog rhythm for some rhythms if we need them.
Yeah.
A few auxiliary sends to the modular and back, and that's basically it, I think. Did I miss something? And I have a synthesizer, just a wavetable synthesizer to add things.
Okay.
Basically my setup I have at home.
Okay. And you're making music, obviously, under the name JakoJako. And I'm very proud to say that we'll be releasing something of yours on Nova Mute later this year, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, some techno coming in.
Some techno. Yeah, so you're working in lots of different genres, really, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I do. And I always have one thing I really want to get, like a sound aesthetic, and I still have a few. I never managed to get them into the machines. Like I have an aesthetic in mind, but I'm not able to make it. And this is basically always my mission. Like this is what I'm actually, what I'm wanting to do. But in this search, like on the way, I create like the different things. Like ambient or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's an open system, so you can do what you want.
Yeah, and it's always growing, as we see here. There are so many cool new things. Maybe these are not new ideas, but they are made in such a nice way.
Is there anything in particular you've seen that you like?
Yeah, there are a few. There are a few people which were like I didn't have the chance to see everything, but there was this one tiny little thing which was looking like a calculator, which is a MIDI recorder. I just thought that's so cute, because I like small things.
Yeah.
And then there was this Swedish guy called Mör, which means crab, I think, in Swedish.
Yeah.
And he had some really nice end of chain things, also interesting wave folder, compressor.
Oh, I know. Yes, that stuff really sounds good. It's really good quality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Like EQ before distortion, like basically, like we all know these things. But if you see someone who's like giving, which is just sounding good, then you're into it. And there were like a few other things. Like I really like Fritz Lab, like this. Is a guy who does like tiny little polyphonic synthesizers. I think he's in the bungalow.
Okay.
Things.
I haven't had a chance to look around enough yet, so
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And I'm really keen about this Waldorf new Waldorf synthesizer. I hadn't the chance to check it out, but I think I'm sure it's going to be great.
Good. It's good to get your recommendations. I mean, you live with modules all the time. I think we have to wind it up in a second. Yeah. One question for Annalise: do you work a lot with electronic musicians, or is that what you like to do? Or
I would say in the last year and a half, I've been collaborating a lot with electronic music people. I'm interested in it.
Yeah,
I'm interested in things that are moving forward, and I feel like the electronic music scene is something that is growing and is really progressing music in a wide way. Yeah. And I'm really interested in how my body like viscerally responds to music in the moment. Like I love improvisation, and I feel like electronic music really hits me in a lot of different ways, like for a lot of people in the club, but I feel like outside the club in the studio I'm able to kind of foster those feelings as well.
Great. Well, really looking forward to seeing your performance today. Really excited.
Wish us luck that everything will work.
You don't need a luck. It's going to work. It's going to be fine, I know. Okay. Well, thank you, and see you later. Yeah. Okay.
See you later.
Bye. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ik heb iets groter.
We don't want to step into good relationships with the distribution.
Dial them if you want to.
I don't know if you know Orac. Orac is a synthesizer, runs on organelle. Open source API. The program has its own application to control, organelle.
We have the next topic, Berliner Schule, and this is something very German, and we switch to German now. Noch nicht? Sondern? Okay, Superbooth 21 in Berlin. Now our topic is Berliner Schule, because this is a very German thing. We switch to German language now. So I have Ich habe hier Bernd Kistenmacher,
Ja,
ein
hallo.
Vertreter der Berliner Schule, der neuen Berliner Schule und Kenner der Berliner Schule.
Ja, freue mich sehr, dass ich hier sein darf.
Willkommen. Was ist das Besondere an der Berliner Schule?
Das Besondere, muss man sagen, ist, dass es schon sehr lange vorbei ist, wenn man ganz ehrlich ist, ja. Es gibt natürlich, alles im Leben verläuft in Wellen und alles kommt immer wieder und nichts geht wirklich verloren. Aber wenn man ganz ehrlich ist, ist so im Jahre 1989 so die große Hochzeit der Berliner Schule zu Ende gewesen. Und 1990, wo die Grenzen gefallen sind, wo Berlin eine Stadt war, begann ja hier was Neues. Und damit war auch das Alte erstmal erledigt.
Ja, aber es wird ja nach wie vor gelebt. Wenn ich das sehe, wir haben es eben im Video gesehen, eine Live-Performance von dir in einem Planetarium. Ich glaube, meistens hört man tatsächlich diese Art von elektronischer Musik in Planetarien, wenn es um Live geht.
Ja, genau. Also natürlich inhaltlich, wir reden da natürlich auch über eine bestimmte Stilistik, also über eine Mischung eben aus sehr vielen üppigen Flächen, experimentellen Sounds, dann dagegen geworfen Sequenzen, lange Soli, so eine Dinge brauchen eine Weile, bis sie sich entwickeln und dann ist so ein Stück dann auch schon mal 45 Minuten lang. Kann durchaus sein, auch mal eine Stunde. Und da ist man natürlich in einem Planetarium sehr gut aufgehoben, wenn man sich zurücklehnen kann, die Augen schließen kann, in die Sterne gucken kann und einfach mal ein bisschen abfliegen, so aus dem normalen, langweiligen Leben. Insofern passt es gut.
Ja, also diese Berliner Schule, elektronische Musik, ist das eigentlich dann so eine Stargazer-Musik?
Naja, sie ist so ein bisschen, hat dieses Klischee natürlich. Also ich sag mal so, ich kann nur über mich reden und nicht über die anderen, die sowas auch machen. Für mich war eigentlich die Motivation, so eine Musik zu machen, Anfang der 80er Jahre, eigentlich die, dass zu dieser Zeit meine Heroes damals, also Klaus Schulze, Tangerine Dream, all die Leute, die auch in Berlin ja mit der Elektronik eigentlich angefangen haben, zu diesem Zeitpunkt anfingen, ihren Stil zu ändern und eigentlich diese Musik, die ich geliebt habe, gar nicht mehr weitergemacht haben, ja, weitergeführt haben. Die haben, steht ja auch jedem Künstler zu, seinen Geschmack mal zu ändern und seinen Stil. Ich war damit nicht glücklich und war immer der Meinung, da gibt es schon noch ein paar Geschichten, die man zum Thema Berliner Schule erzählen kann. Und das war genau der Moment, wo ich dann angefangen habe, selbst Musik zu machen. Und habe mich da also sozusagen in der zweiten Generation sozusagen da nach vorne gearbeitet, ja. Und insofern war mir aber nicht wichtig, da so eine Schublade wieder zu bedienen, so Stargazer-Musik, ja, klar, Wolkenschiebermusik hieße in den 70er Jahren, irgendeine Bezeichnung gab es ja immer dafür. Es ist natürlich auch der Tatsache geschuldet, dass man diese Musik schwer einordnen kann. Ja, Four on the Floor ist einfacher, das ist Beat, da kann man tanzen zu, da kann man auch mitgehen. Bei der Musik ist das ein bisschen anders.
Da gibt es natürlich auch viele Styles. Aber du bist ja jetzt, wie du gerade erzählt hast, lange schon dabei und entwickelst die Musik weiter und hast bei den Heroes angefangen. Das ist mir auch passiert. Und ich halte dir mal das hier unter die Nase und du wirst es wahrscheinlich kennen.
Ja klar, das ist so ein Notenblatt vom guten alten Klaus Schulze. Bayreuth Return, ja, Wahnfried, die Komposition, genau, das war ein Stück auf seiner Platte Timewind und ich glaube, damit hat er sich sogar bei der GEMA als ernster Komponist eintragen lassen und musste
mit dieser
eben
Partitur.
Ja, er musste eben nachweisen, dass er in der Lage ist, eine Partitur zu schreiben.
Ich habe das als 11-Jähriger entdeckt. Freunde hatten diese Platte da und ich habe mir die angehört und immer diese Partitur mir angeguckt und dachte, Wahnsinn. So, ich hatte natürlich keine Ahnung von elektronischer Musik, aber irgendwie hat mich das total berührt.
Die von der GEMA wahrscheinlich auch nicht, aber das sah eben sehr überzeugend aus.
Ja, halt es mal in die Kamera, das ist total cool.
Es ist in dem Plattencover drin von der Timewind.
Genau.
Ne? Genau.
Timewind, ja, das war die erste und ich glaube meine einzige Platte tatsächlich, wenn es um Berliner Schule geht.
Okay.
Aber es war ein
guter Einstieg,
ja,
also darf man schon sagen.
Ja, wie eben gesagt, du bist schon sehr lange dabei und hast diese Musik weiterentwickelt und etwas hat dich bewogen, über die Berliner Schule ein Buch zu schreiben.
Ja, das stimmt. Das heißt Ferne Ziele. Also das Skript ist fertig und es erzählt in einem ersten Teil erzähle ich meine eigene Geschichte. Tatsächlich, was ich erlebt habe, vom Fan bis zum Macher. In einem zweiten Teil, den ich überschrieben habe mit dem Titel Eure Geschichte ist meine eure Geschichte ist meine Vorgeschichte. Und das war ein Gedanke, der mir beim Schreiben kam, weil mir klar war, wenn ich über mich erzähle und natürlich immer auf meine Vorbilder referiere, dann muss man natürlich über die Vorbilder erzählen. Ja?
Okay.
Und insofern hat dieses Buch, ist jetzt kein Buch über Tangerine Dream oder keines über Klaus Schulze oder sonst wen, aber eines mit ihnen. Und da war mir eben wichtig, auch sozusagen die stillen Helden zu Worte kommen zu lassen, die den Begriff Berliner Schule mitgeprägt haben, ohne dass sie eigentlich dafür berühmt geworden sind. Ja? Und es waren eben nicht nur Musiker, es waren eben auch ganz andere Leute, wie zum Beispiel der Leiter der Musikschule Berlin-Wilmersdorf, Konrad Latte. Ja, der dafür gesorgt hat, dass es eben in Wilmersdorf dieses Electronic Beat Studio geben durfte.
Genau.
Ein Thomas Kessler, ein Musikprofessor aus der Schweiz, der dann eben sich des Themas als junger Student angenommen hat und diesen jungen Künstlern beigebracht hat, wie man eben neue Musik komponiert und wie man mit einem Tonband arbeitet und was ein Synthesizer ist. Er war tatsächlich auch der Erste, der einen Synthesizer in West-Berlin angeschafft hat. Also den Synthi A aus London, den hat er selbst gekauft. Ja. Und damit fingen die an, diese jungen Leute dann rum zu experimentieren. Und da gibt es eben zwei Namen, die da ganz hervorragend sind. Das ist einerseits der Christoph Franke. Ja, der ist dafür berühmt geworden später, dass er bei Tangerine Dream mittragend gewesen ist. Der war aber vorher ein hervorragender Schlagzeuger. Der war bei der Band Agitation Free, hat er gespielt. Und hat diesen Synthi A gekriegt und ist da völlig ausgerastet. Und genauso war es auch mit dem Michael Hönig, der eben auch Berliner Schulestar ist. Ja. Und später nach Hollywood gegangen ist. Und die haben mit dem Synthi A angefangen, elektronische Musik zu machen. Und dann kam dieses ganze Ding hoch, dann kam eben Edgar Fröse an und hat gesagt, was macht ihr da? Dann kam eben Manuel Göttsching an und hat geguckt, Klaus Schulze kam an. Dann haben die sich alle auch im Beatstudio irgendwie kennengelernt, die kannten sich auch teilweise vorher schon, haben dann angefangen zu arbeiten und dann der Rest ist tatsächlich Geschichte. Ja, dann sind da die Dinge rausgekommen, dann gab es Möglichkeiten, auch finanzieller Art, dass man sich mal ein Moog-Modular zulegen konnte. Na, dann kam so ein Ding in Berlin an, hat sich Christoph Franke auch gleich drauf gestürzt und dann hat auf einmal Tangerine Dream, die waren ja vorher eine Rockband, kann man sagen. Ja, auf einmal war es eine Elektronikband. Ja.
Aber das bindest du auch zusammen in deinem Buch. Also es gibt auch einen historischen Abriss, was ich ja total wichtig finde, dass man es darüber weiterträgt. Also tolle Arbeit von dir. Ich bin sehr gespannt darauf.
Ja.
Und leider
ich hoffe, dass ich dafür einen Verlag finde. Ja, bald.
Ja, ich hoffe doch. Ich glaube, wir könnten noch, 2 Stunden jetzt hier weiterreden.
Ja,
aber wir
gerne,
sind leider zu Ende mit der Zeit. Und ich glaube, wir seien jetzt Impressions von den Tape Loop Workshops, Playground und das Modular Synthesizer Ensemble.
Vielen Dank.
Ja, danke schön.
This was some more impressions of the Superbooth. Oh, it makes me hungry to see what's going on outdoors, and it's wonderful to have this atmosphere. Our next guest probably has no idea of the Superbooth, or have you been to the Superbooth? I will ask you later. I would like to introduce this very special guest from Belarus, because Belarus is somehow, for a German view, behind a curtain where you always only hear from political conflicts and people who go on the street and fight for their rights. And then I heard that there's a guy making modulars from one of my friendly employees, and I said, this is interesting, let's ask him if he's ready to talk, and I'm very happy to welcome you on board. Thanks for doing it. Yes, Alexei is this, and this is
Hello.
L1.
Hello.
How is it in Belarus? What's going on?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, okay.
We can hear
hello.
you very well.
Hello, I'm Alexei Laman. I run L1 synthesizer brand and make Eurorack gear, models, cases, and PSUs under that brand. I live in Belarus, in Minsk. This is capital city. I live and work here.
And you are concentrating on making these modules for longer already. I heard you made kits before this. Did you make kits before that was easier to let the kids find the clients because you can send them in an envelope secretly with no value? Or did you make kits because you are more into the DIY scene, home-based?
Yes, I did DIY at first, and with time I decided would be good to make something from me, my own project, a board for other DIY people, and I introduced my first board at the end of 2011,
okay,
in December, and start sales in 2012, in spring of 2012.
So you have something like your 10th anniversary now. 10 years you're selling modules, that's great. Welcome on board for Superbooth at least, and we asked you to show you a bit more modules and let us participate in what you're doing, but if you have no more questions.
Yeah, what I heard, that the people like your modules because of their high quality. And yes, I'm now very excited as well to hear a little bit of your sound.
I make my models myself. I don't employ any workers, and I personally respond for its quality. This is, I assembled this small system with some models. I can show you, demonstrate some models I produce now. People can try into SCHNEIDER's shop. So today I probably will show on what I'm working now, what models I will release soon, some prototypes and some pictures. At first, I want to show how my models looks. This is a compressor, stereo compressor, made with discrete VCAs. I make such cover from backside. Here is serial number and inscription. This is my original assembly because some project I make for DIY and say can be assembled not by me. This is confirms this is my assembly. Also, this cover protect circuit board from damages, from emissions, and I like to make this way possibly to put on table on somewhere and not damage parts inside. I use it as game cells THT chips, THT2180. But from my location, every time was difficult to get these chips for a good price, and I decided to make.
Alexei, can you hear me? I have to interrupt shortly. The quality is somehow going down. We can't really understand your voice. And perhaps I heard you wanted to swap over to play a bit on the modules. Perhaps it's better with having music. The connection is somehow interrupted. Can you hear me?
You want I play something? Yes.
So as far as I see, it was impossible to understand your talking anymore. There was something like a distortion on the voice. Is there a fix for this, or should we go ahead locally?
I can try to make now better.
It's going more complicated. Scheiße. You can understand me? Something's wrong, like a distortion or like a going down battery on a transmitter or something like that.
Now it's better.
No.
No.
Hast du eine Idee, Benjamin? Den ohne? An seiner Stelle. Okay, perhaps you can switch off, switch on, and I have a plan B because I have a guest in the audience who's the one that you have been in contact with, and this is Benjamin Flesser, who was the one who was buying your kits first. And do we have a third microphone? Okay, yes. Super. That's the plan B because we expected. I don't know if you ever seen each other. And we can try again. It's fine like that. So it's about yes. Yoo-hoo!
Hi, Alexei.
Alexei, can you hear us?
So, yeah, probably you remember when I first ordered your kits in an envelope and built them all myself and had tons of questions. And at a certain point, I asked you, would you be interested in having your modules in Schneider's Laden? And you said, like, I never thought about that. Why not?
But he was not making modules. He was just sending you, as you told me, you was getting just an envelope with a front plate and a board and
a PCB.
List of parts that you should find somewhere.
Exactly. And then I figured out that he had also started to make the assembled modules.
Yes.
And this was the turning point where I thought, okay, if he's already assembling the modules, maybe it's a good time to have them in the shop. And luckily it worked out quite quickly, and we had the first modules after, I don't know, 2 months of the order, and then everyone was very happy to try them out. And that's where we are now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, very nice. And
What
I
do
like
you
the idea.
what do you like on that modules? Can you describe the quality of it?
Yeah, I got, they got my attention because I was looking for a new tube amplifier for my modular rack. And I saw that he's using those rather rare Soviet old tubes that I couldn't find anywhere else. So I thought I'd just give it a try and try that. And when I then looked also on another favorite module of mine, which is the resonant equalizer that he has, I couldn't find so many demos, so that I just decided to build one. And when I did that, I was totally blown by the quality. And this was really the start where I ordered more and more stuff.
Let's try now. If Alexei, can you say something that we hear you again?
Hello, I switched.
Wonderful, thanks to the team.
I switched from Bluetooth microphone to microphone I have in web camera. Now it's better.
Much better.
Much better. Much better. Something was wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go ahead.
Okay.
We let you go ahead.
Okay. Now I make my new generation of my models. I make with discrete gain cells, discrete VCAs. Now I can show you. Here is my older quad VCA mixer, which is made with chips. This is my new quad VCA, which is made with discrete VCAs. I connected both of these models to the same wave. This is just saw wave with many harmonics. And I can show what I watch on my analyzer. Because people often ask me what is the difference between chips and discrete VCAs. My aim was to make not worst. To make not worse than was in chips, to switch from American chips to discrete VCAs, which are made with transistors, which much easier to buy for me, and they are cheaper. Now I want to switch the screen demonstration. It turns off from organizer. Possible to turn on screen demonstration. How?
We can hear you. We see
you.
Yes,
I want to demonstrate my screen.
Sure.
But this option is
so okay, it's the
disabled.
Zoom. You would like to share the screen.
Yes.
That's something they have to switch on. Yes, that's why we, our bigger team, he's probably turning it on and then it's possible. Yes. And in between, I would say the compressor is the one, and the quality is very highly respected here from our product expert. That's why we're very much looking forward to it. I saw on the availability that there's 1 or 2 out of 10 designed modules is available. How is it with the spare parts in Belarus? You know, it's another, from our view, it's another continent. Is it easy for you to get the parts to solder your things, or?
Not very easy, of course, because we have borders and customs. I must pay customs taxes, make customs formalities. This is a bit expensive. But anyway, I do that and I get parts I need.
So there's no shops where you can go and say one part of this, one part of that, and then it's a complicated situation probably.
Yes. I source parts from different shops. The hardest is Farnell, UK.
Farnell is international there.
Yeah. Yes. Very many papers. They ask very many papers. They accept credit cards only from exact bank. I made for them special card to pay them because cards I have under sanction or something, embargo. But anyway, after all that formalities, I got parts, and can make these models. I can show you the sound of, I have here a prototype. I wanted to show you front panels, pictures with front panels to show you better, but sharing screen is disabled.
It's perhaps because we learn how to work out, and a few things are more complicated because it's a public viewing here, and that's why perhaps they huh? Okay, you can share the screen. They just give me a sign.
Okay. Now, I probably first will show you but VCAs, cheap and discrete, how it looks at Analyzer. This is a square wave, 1000 Hertz. Here is yellow, it's discrete. Red is cheap. As you can see, all digits are the same and plots are completely the same. I change wave frequency. It's the same. Now I will show you dynamic range. I make zero level. As you can see, red, this is cheap. It has louder harmonics in high frequencies over 1000 Hertz. If I change wave higher at this is wave 10,000 Hertz. Difference is about 20 dBs. Now I make wave lower. This is, as you can see, very close. Sonically, I hear no difference between both of them, but Analyzer shows difference in muting at high frequencies, and shows no difference at full level.
To be honest, I'm a musician and I have my problems to understand what you just explained with that. Perhaps you are better on that.
But what I wanted to ask is the Black Sea VCA or the Black Sea topology. Is this your invention, or if not, where did you find it? Because I tried to find some information about it, but I couldn't really. So maybe
no, topology is the same as in chips. This is Blackmare, invented by David Blackmare. But Blackmare is a trademark of THAT Corporation. Therefore, I named Black Sea. Sounds similar, but different.
Okay, I understand.
Yes, I showed you the difference between both VCAs, and I find difference is very little, and discrete VCA shows better muting at high frequencies. This is hard to hear because this is very quiet. But probably if to mix several more VCAs, this will be louder. Don't know. I look into analyzer, into plots. I work with, not with music, I work with physical values. So I can show you, and I can turn you sound. This is a prototype of new model of equalizer, which can be switched from equalizer to resonator. In equalizer mode, input signal is presented at the output. In resonator mode is not presented. So resonator is like bypass filter. Now I show, this is a prototype. Final model will be looks front panel looks a bit differently. I have already done. I will show a bit later a picture. Now I will try to show you sound. I want to show it not self-oscillate at thinnest bandwidth and high frequencies. Filters usually start to oscillate if bandwidth is very thin, and I made it not oscillate. I feed here saw wave and will show how this device in resonator mode filter frequency. Now I'm switching to synth.
Was good to hear over here.
Hello. You heard that good? Yes.
Yeah. It sounded fantastic.
Fantastic. This I show it you as I said before. I've varied frequency and show you thin bandwidth. Then I made bandwidth wider than widest. And what I wanted to show, this is no oscillation, no self-oscillation from filters. But if you need oscillation, here is switches which switch into oscillation mode to check your frequencies. If you need to boost or cut exact notes, possible to check with oscillation what frequencies you will boost or cut, and then switch oscillation off and work with this device. Now I will show you a front panel, how it would look. This. I made this in-part level attenuator and overload LED, because sometimes people go to clipping with boosting bands. Every band possible to boost on 16 dB. This is pretty much, and sound can go into clipping, but here will be overload LED, which will show you signal is clips. Yes, here is a switch between equalizer mode and resonator mode. This switch of first and fourth channels between bypass and low pass, here high pass filter and bypass switch.
Alexei, it's a sad thing to say, but our time is nearly over, and I thought to interrupt you a little bit and say I was very much reminded by your way of speaking, by your personality as far as I can see that, and by the modules with the backplate a bit to early years of Wo war Svejmen. Did you ever have a Svejmen module in your hand?
I had Svejmen models, but I sold.
Yes, so
I sold a few years ago because I needed money to make this case. I wanted to show you the case. This is XLR out parts.
Okay.
Case can be put on each side. I put now.
So I have the impression we will meet more often with your modules or about modules, and the day will hopefully come where we will meet in person on one of the next Superbooths. And I would like to say thank you very much for doing it, because we have the next thing and we try to make a good plan for entertaining our audience, where this was definitely a good component of. Thank you very much, Alexei from Belarus, for showing his L1 modules the first time personally here on our virtual live stream, and to Benjamin, who introduced us to each other over here. And we give you a little applause. I'll take you once around, and then Jörg will say what's next. So this is where you've been. This is your audience. Okay, one.
Looks epic.
So we're in a big hall here, and but I'm sure there's plenty of other people looking online. And what's next?
Next, we have another Gesprächskonzert from yesterday, I think. It's
the next Gesprächskonzert.
Leipzig West and Tubbutec.
modules, or or LPZW for short.
And I'm Toby from Tubbutec, and for the last 2 years we've been working on this module as a collaboration, and we are very, very happy to present it to you today. It's called 6 Mod 6, and it's a TR-606 based drum synthesizer with a lot of additional functions and features. And
the best thing we could do is to just walk through each individual sound and show you what's going on with this little box. Of course, we have the usual sounds. If you know the TR-606, you know there's a bass drum, a snare drum, the toms, the cymbal and the hi-hats. And as Toby already said, we took the original circuits of the 606 and kind of expanded on that, added additional parameters that make sense to us and hopefully to everybody else too. So let's start showing.
I think we will start with the bass drum, and Kai will show us all the bass drum parameters. We marked the original sounds in orange on the front panel, and the first parameter we are going to show is bass drum tune. The bass drum consists of 2 oscillators, and we can tune one of them. We can also fade between the 2 oscillators. So this is only one, and this is the other one. And we can adjust the decay of one of the oscillators as well. The snare drum consists of...
You forgot something. We have an additional parameter called click. That's the attack, which makes it a bit more audible.
The snare drum consists of a decaying oscillator, the snare body, and the noise part. And we can adjust the pitch of the body part. We can put a high-pass filter on the noise part. That's the snappy parameter. And of course, we can adjust the decay. Very short or very long decays are possible. And finally, we can choose the noise source. There are 3 sources, and we will talk about them later, but just for a quick show, there are sounds possible that usually are definitely not possible with a 606. Let's have a look at the toms. We can tune the low and the high tom. And specifically for the low tom, we have a sub-tom switch, and that turns it down a whole octave, and we can get really low bass drums. Additionally, there is a noise parameter that in the original gives a bit of room and reverb, and we can adjust that from 0 to double the original value. And one parameter I forgot to show was at the bass drum actually. Can we hear the bass drum again? Sorry, the snare drum. If we have the white noise, we can actually tune the white noise as well. And it's a digital noise, and we can change the sample rate so we get bit crushing like effects. So, sorry. Now let's hear the cymbal, right? In the original, the cymbal consists of 2 parts as well, and we can fade between them. This is one of them, and here's the other one. And for this one, we can actually change a bandpass filter. And then, of course, we can change the cymbal decay. And and the metal sound you hear is made of 6 oscillators, And we can change the pitch of these 6 oscillators. And we can change their spread. So if we turn the spread all the way to 0, all the 6 oscillators will have the same pitch. And if we increase the spread, we can have these metal sounds again.
So the XOR maybe?
Yeah, true. So this is an additional waveform that you can choose as an input for snare, cymbal, and hi-hats. It takes 2 of the oscillators and creates a XOR ring modulation. And yeah, really industrial, crazy sounds are possible here. And finally, the hi-hats, right? So we have open and closed hi-hats. And with the switch, we can swap between them. So we can... Yeah, I'm back. And we can adjust the open and closed hi-hat decays individually. And of course here we can also change the sound, the source of the sound. We have white noise, metal sound, and XOR again.
Okay. So we implemented a lot of other features too. For some of the parameters we also added CV input, so we can have oh yeah, Toby, just in a little LFO into the metal noise pitch. So we have some wild hi-hats here. Or the decay of the snare, for instance, which is very lovely. You can do subtle changes in the rhythm. It sounds much more funky with a little bit of modulation on the decays, also for the hi-hats. But we added a MIDI input, which means you can control the module directly from a MIDI controller, Beat Pro, Digitact computer, whatever. We also gave you the possibility to use CC to modulate all the parameters that are also on the CD inputs, like the metal tune or the decays of the snare. Yeah, and the most funky parameter is that you actually can play the metal noise chromatically. You can play chords on the hi-hats if you would like to. And on the snare too. One thing that is famously missing on the original TR-606 are signal outs for the sounds. So we were quite certain we need to add those. So in this case, Toby, maybe the toms. We can feed the toms through an external effects chain separately, which can make this beautiful bass line here.
Hello, hello, check, check.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure there are a lot of more features that we forgot about, but that's pretty much it, and our time is up as well. So thank you very much for listening.
Goodbye.
Great. This was the Gesprächskonzert from Leipzig West, alias LPZW, together with Tubbutec. And they are not based in Leipzig, they're based in Berlin, and they are sharing a place to produce their stuff. I think also somewhere in Kreuzberg, at least in Berlin. And we're here on the stage with another two Berliners and with Gareth Jones, who's our guest now. And this is the talk with Gareth Jones, where we would like to cover several themes where we've just been talking about. And I, first of all, welcome a lot Gareth Jones and Gerhard Meyerhofer and Gerd Jallas, all with G. It's genius. Thanks for coming, everybody. So,
thank you, Andreas.
I would like to find a bow from here to there about analog and digital, because I was updated by my wife, who found something on the net saying that you produced the album for Jan Tiersen that was released currently, and Jan Tiersen was playing the day before yesterday, and he's on the show every day, and you are his producer with his album Kerber. And I would like to have a bit more knowledge about what do you mean with you produced it analog?
Well, first of all, it's very much a co-production. Jan's a great producer himself.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And that's
yeah.
okay. And he's a great musician and electronic music wizard as well, as you might have seen on Wednesday night.
Sure. Yeah.
So, first of all, it's not analog, the last album.
Okay.
So there is an analog element to our work, of course. So I'll go back an album to the album before, which is like a triple album called Portrait, which is a history, I think, pretty much a random history through Jan's back catalogue, which he toured with a band before we went in the studio to his studio. He's got a wonderful studio on the island of Wesson. And we toured, the band toured the album before we recorded it. Jan is a big analog nut. He's a digital freak as well, actually, but he's a huge analog fan, and that's reflected in the studio that he built, which has a big analog console, many analog consoles, and lots of tape recorders. So, for the album Portrait, which is the analog record, Jan's vision was to make it pure analog from sound source to vinyl. So it was kind of a challenge that he threw out to us all. And obviously I've got a long history of working pre-digital in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. And so I was happy to go on this journey with him. What do we like about it? First of all, I should quote the genius Mr. Brian Eno, who said, anyone who romanticizes working with tape has never actually done it, because it's a pain in the ass working with tape. It's a beautiful thing, but it's not an easy route. But one of the good things about it is that obviously. One of the good things about analog, in my opinion, altogether, is that you have to commit with analog in a way that, because digital is storable and savable and endlessly editable, it's possible to avoid making decisions. And with analog, in my work as a producer and as a musician, I'm forced to make commitments all the time, which I like. Because if I'm not forced to make a commitment, then I just don't do anything. I just piss about endlessly. So that's a general thing I love about analog, is it forces you to commit. Whether the wonderful, joyful experience I had with Daniel with our Sunroof record that you mentioned, is analog modular improvisations. And for sure, that record wouldn't have happened if we hadn't done it with analog modulars, recorded straight to stereo or sometimes recorded to 4-track and then finished, because we would have spent 10 years editing it and then we would have got really bored and it never would have come out, you know. So the fact that we were forced to commit to performances and this is really big for me, it's really big, because it's like a limitation that forces me to complete stuff. And I mean, it's not just me. Many people report this experience. If you limit yourself, you can get stuff done. So one of the reasons it was possible to make Jan's wonderful retrospective vision portrait was because the band were very rehearsed. So we tracked it as a band, actually, old school, which was all part of the process. And because it was on tape, we had to be, or the band actually had to be very efficient. And there's a big thing. There's a bit of magic happens with tape, I feel, because it's not easy to fix problems. Musicians raise their game sometimes when they're playing to tape. Every band wants to come in and see the tape go round and round and hear something really good come out the speakers. And that in itself is an incredible psychological aid, I feel, to good performance. So that certainly worked, and we had a number of occasions on that record where one member of the band, never Jan actually, but one member of the band would want to fix something, and we'd kind of just laugh at them and say, come on man, that doesn't matter, it's on tape, it's not worth the hassle, just live with it. And none of those problems ever mattered afterwards, you know, so that was super interesting. And of course the other great thing is it's track limited. We only had 23 tracks, so that is a massive time saver as well.
What was wrong with the 24th?
It's time code.
Time code.
Yeah, no click actually. It was live, or everything was played without click actually. But yeah, that would have been 22 if we had click and time code. But it was just time code for a mix computer, saved to the mix computer. So that's great as well. I heard a great photographer talk about his work with students, and some of the students, when he's doing a 2-week or 3-week workshop, some work digital and some work analog. And one thing that had struck him as a mentor was that the analog students were always finished first, because right up to the final moment, the digital students would still have 5,000 pictures to choose from. And of course the analog people had committed, because film's not unlimited, they'd committed to something earlier in the process. And he didn't say the digital work was worse, but for sure the analog people finished first. And I do feel Jan's record, the triple album, right? When I started, I thought it was a single album. So it turned into a triple album, so which was a bit of a surprise. But I don't think we'd have, if we'd done it on digital, on a DAW, I don't think we could have done it in the time available. I think that was a big time. Funnily enough, although there's extra pressure, it was a big time saver because we didn't have so many choices. We couldn't stack takes up endlessly and edit between them. We just, the whole band every time just went for a performance of the song, which worked because it was like an old school project, because the band had toured the album before. That almost never happens in my experience these days. I think it happened in the 50s and the 60s a lot, when many albums were recorded after the band had been on the road for a year, so they could play it. But a lot of work now seems to happen where the songs are kind of half written, then people go into a digital world and build the record. And that's great. But it's not so great if time is limited and you want to produce great performances on analog tape. So there we go. So that was it, really. Really well-rehearsed band, lots of commitment, not too many reels of tape available. We didn't have millions of euros for tape costs.
Sure.
And great material, really well-rehearsed, meant that we were able to track the album in a really exciting and creative way. And then we carried on. We mixed it analog on a wonderful solid-state board that Jan bought. And, of course, we mixed to tape. And that's another issue that I could touch on if anyone's interested afterwards. But we mixed to tape. And then we really wanted to cut the vinyl directly from the analog tape, which sounds simple, except that most of the modern lathes have the actual audio that goes to the cutter head is delayed through a digital line, because that's how the cutting computer works. It knows there's something loud coming because it looks at the tape, and then it delays the cutter head by half a revolution. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to stay analog all the way, so we went to our friend Alex Wharton at Abbey Road, who's a wonderful soul and a great mastering engineer, great vinyl cutter, and he dug out one of the old tape recorders, which has a head for the audio and a head for the cutting lathe, so the tape goes around in like a huge path. So it's all a bit nerdy. I don't know if anyone could tell afterwards, actually. For us, it was a wonderful journey, and we went all the way from the microphone to the vinyl along an analog road, and it was a great experience, and that was the previous record. So the new record, Quebec, which is a wonderful follow-up to the Oyster record, kind of based around piano. Jan said a great thing about it recently in interviews that I saw. He didn't say it at the time. He said the piano was an excuse to have something to hang the electronics on, which I thought was really, really cool. And we met up, and obviously Jan was super well prepared, and he could play all the piano. Each piece is based around a piano solo, which are wonderful in themselves. But we had a conversation about how we were going to make the record, because there was a possibility that we might go to tape. Record company were freaking out a little bit because of tape costs. That was one thing. I was freaking out a little bit because I was really excited about Jan's modular vision, and I wanted to be able to get very creative. I feel personally very creative with Logic Audio. So I was very keen to work with Logic Audio, and also in the studio are some wonderful high-end analog to digital converters. So there was no sense that we were sacrificing sound by going digital. So for that record, very quickly we decided. I knew Jan wanted to get going, and very quickly we share an aesthetic, actually, which is one of the reasons we've been able to work together over a number of albums so creatively, I feel. Very quickly it was clear that we were going to do this thing in a DAW. But of course it's hybrid. We didn't mix in the box, and we tracked through wonderful analog gear. And I think most people who can afford it work hybrid, because why not? It's a complete joy. So it all goes in the box, the Logic Audio box. We mix it on the SSL console. We print it to tape and to digital, of course, as everyone does. And afterwards, we both listened separately to the mixes and chose different mixes. Sometimes we chose the digital, and sometimes we chose the analog, because it was subtle. And it was very interesting because we did it independently, and we both agreed. We both picked the same set, 4 and 3, I think it was, or something. I don't know, 4 each. So that is enough for me for a minute.
That was a very nice insight in understanding your life and what you are doing. Thank you very much. And I know what Daniel has in his, Daniel Miller, well, this is not about Jan Thiersen, in his thing, and this is the analog look of playing around, but there's also digital modules in. And in the end, if you talk about it was quite analog, apart from that very special and very analog way, it's always, there's a difference in between real analog or analog because you can touch things and you play on things and you record to tape or you record to vinyl directly, but still there's always digital components in. So in the end, do you think we have to mind about is there digital components in, or do you say in the end, yeah, they are existing and they are part of it?
I totally, they're part of it. I mean, that's digital, right? That camera. Exactly. Are we streaming from film?
it's the same over there. And I also thought, you know, leading over to our other guest, he's a programmer, from what I know, in his original life, and he started with making modular components in the size of the Moog thing, and the Moog thing is known for being the analog Blaupause, the early stuff from, I don't know when, we'll come to that later, and then he said I was unhappy with the sequences in the Moog system because he's also experiencing the performance of patching and playing longer than we do, because he was already with the Moog things, he was one of the big collector of Moog things when everybody was throwing them out of their collections. He was one of them. I take it, I take it, I take it, I take it. And so he had a huge Moog wall, like nowadays only Hans Zimmer is well known for such. And then he said, I needed a sequencer that is better, and then he designed a digital sequencer, you know, but everybody is seeing it, all the clients and the users are definitely seeing it, oh, an analog system, wunderbar, and then there's plenty of Moon modular instead of Moog modular, and this is all digital stuff, I don't know, but...
I think it's like Gareth said, that some of our modules, they look extremely analog because it's a haptical thing, you work with it, so you have a knob and you turn it, which is completely different than pushing a button pushing a button on something, but obviously the sequences behind these days, I myself, so as a designer, didn't want to bother with the complexity of analog things. So it's okay, we put in a computer in there, but it behaves more or less like the old analog stuff.
But the important thing is the limitation from what you say, and I think the same, it's the limitation of having one knob per function.
Yes.
And I don't mind what's behind.
I think it's a little bit like what I always say is, you get what you see. So there is no hidden thing, you just have these amount of knobs, you have these amount of switches, and yeah, that's it, and you have to live with it.
Yes.
And I think creativity comes from that you have a certain restriction and have to work in that restriction, because you have to understand what is going on, and then you will use it, and even at a certain point in time, you think, oops, how did I do that?
Does your sequencer store sequences?
No.
Brilliant.
Well done.
Brilliant. No,
like you could stay.
I think it's what the sequencer does, because I'm more in this type of Berlin school sequencer type of thing. What I've learned over time is that some musicians like scales. So my sequencer, you can have it quantized in terms of
pitch.
Pitch.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if you want to control a filter, where it's much more important to have subtle changes, then you don't need the quantizer.
Yeah.
So it's offering both. And the other thing is that our sequences, you know the sequences, and they walk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we thought, okay, that's a good idea, but why not walk backwards or what? So there's a lot of chances to even the same sequence, if you have it, just 4 notes or 8 notes. If you run it forward, it sounds like something. If you run it backward, it sounds like something. And if you tune it very well, it's really a nice variation you get in there.
Yeah.
So I think, and all this is more interaction with it than really thinking ages about it, how you want to structure something. You're in front of it and work with it. And I think that's important.
Yeah, so do I. And I think it's super important that, to me, I had a great conversation at Superbooth actually with another genius maker called Urs Heckmann, dear friend, a while ago, on exactly this, about how really the problem with the plug-in synths was that you can store them and then you can tweak it the next day, and the next day you can tweak it, and 3 weeks later you can... So he made me a special one-off version of Ace where I couldn't save it. So
but he didn't take it over to his products?
No,
and say,
no, it's clearly not a commercial decision.
Okay, but is it just the idea that to know that you are able to save?
Yeah, because
it
once you
changes the whole thing.
Yeah, I think so. Because once you can save, you've got a security blanket, you know. And if I mean, it's old school, isn't it? Like a pianist or a guitarist or a drummer, None of them could save the performance and edit it later. They delivered something, and if it's good, you use it, and if it's shit, you do it again. You know, I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's the way to rehearse. Yeah.
Yeah, you rehearse. Yeah, and you can listen to it the next day, and if it survives the next day and the day after, then great. Personally, with my my musical projects as opposed to my production projects, like Sunroof, the crazy improvisation record with Daniel, or I have a solo project called Electrogenetic, and another project with Nick Hook in Brooklyn called Spiritual Friendship.
Yeah, you've been here on the Superbooth. On the
we
first.
love you, actually, for that. Nick wants to send his love to you, Andreas, because you helped us do our very first live performance here at the first Superbooth.
Yes, in the Funkhaus.
So thank you very much for that from me and from Nick.
Thank you for doing it.
So
let's say hello to Nick.
Hi, Nick. And so, and I have another thing called Naus Alpha with Chris Bono, and all these projects, for me, my musical output is based on not being able to save stuff. For 30 years or some more in the studio, I had endless folders of unfinished stuff. And it was only when I moved to a new headspace, but then I moved to my personal choice, Eurorack, again inspired by you, Andreas, and your wonderful store. This idea of actually committing to stuff and recording a bass line, and if it was recording an improvisation, and if it was no good, recording another improvisation. It doesn't work for everyone. But for me personally, it's profound. You know, it's really the only way I can get stuff done.
I like that very much.
You know.
So I'm working with a digital modular. It's inside this Bitwig software.
Okay.
And it's called the Grid. It's a great modular system.
Okay.
And of course, you can store everything.
Yeah.
And yes, my experience is that you have to really take care of not to make versions and versions of patches, because you cannot track that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm working in digital, like exactly the same. I'm recording an audio file.
Yeah, great. That's for me. That's how it works with the. And I use some. Of course, in my commissioned work as a mixer and a producer, I'm quite happy to use digital wherever it's necessary to do it to get stuff done on time and on budget. but also in my work as a composer and as a musician, then when I use plugins, I record them exactly the same as you're doing. If I build I quite like the soft tube modular setup, and if I create a patch in that and I'm feeling it, I just I track it to an audio file.
Then you delete the patch.
I'm not sure I have the balls to delete the patch. I hide the track and put it in the background some. See, that's the danger with digital. It's very hard. It's because, I delete the patch, but I backed it up last night, of course, on Time Machine. So then it's in the cloud, and it's over there, and it's on my off-site backup. You know, it's very hard to be... Same with the last Naus Alpha record we did, and the Spiritual Friendship record. I said, guys, can we try and pretend that Ableton Live is a 16-track? And we kind of stuck to it. And these guys are a lot younger than me, like 40, and they just looked at me like I was a madman. Why would you want to do 16-track? And I said, yeah, so we can get finished, maybe, you know. And it worked. And they loved it afterwards, both of them.
Okay, yeah.
They loved it. And it's about limitations.
Yeah. I think it's you talked about the price of tapes when you said, I think it's the very same if you look at modulars. So you can have one oscillator or 500 if the amount of money you want to spend.
Yeah.
I think it's much better to just have, well, good ones obviously, but only a few, and start with a few. And there are people that say, okay, they have a lot of money and they have a lot of modulars, and they even said, okay, I have a wall which is 4 sections, and each of the section is a patch I'm working on.
Yeah.
So this is then a little bit like storing your ideas.
It's decadent. It's kind of decadent, no?
Yeah, but it's like...
It's just different. I wouldn't criticize it. It's just a different way of working. Yeah. Some people do.
I would be stupid to criticize it,
No,
but I still do it.
Yeah, because you
I
say
think,
shit, right?
I think one of the reasons is that, like, if you're in the digital world and like you talked about the UHE stuff, you just can recall it. If you have a complex modular patch, which you like, and say, I want to use it in 2-3 days, and you remove all the patch cords, you really have to remember a lot to get it back again.
Yeah, but you learn which is your favorite because you do it again. And if it's your favorite patch, you don't just take it all out because you search it again and you create something better.
I don't. I can't redo anything I do with modular.
Yeah, good, but sometimes we try to.
I give up. I can't. I mean, there are great geniuses who can do that, but I can't. I'm more like a naive hobbyist. I just make something, and if I'm lucky, you know, and the machine gives me something back, then that's why I chose the name Electrogenetic for my solo project, because I felt that there was a birth in the electronics in my interaction with modular. But also, I'm sorry, I don't want to make this some, bigging up Andreas SCHNEIDER
no, it's
thing,
fine.
but I'm going to.
Yeah.
So Andreas had a philosophy which I've started, I believe this is from you, which I've started following more now, is I build a rack for the particular composition or the particular piece I'm going to do. So I don't have a wall of modular, but I have more modules than go in my 104 rack, you know. Yes. So now I tend to build it. I think, well, I'm doing this. I'm going to build a case. I'm at the moment. I wrote a record with a young woman, young by my standards anyway, called Emily, where we're going to do some live work. And so I built a modular case exactly for the live work, and I'm really enjoying that to take us. Again, a limitation, and say, well, that's what I need for this. Okay, I'm doing some improvisations with Daniel. That's what I need for that. And I find that fantastic, that I don't get overwhelmed by too many modules. It's a very small brain, obviously.
But I think it's what I like. That's like what you said. With the modular, you can tune it as such to what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So you don't have a huge keyboard with 5 million sounds or whatever. So you say, okay, I like this, and I then start working with that. And I think a lot of people, I love collecting stuff too.
Still.
But you somehow, if you want to work with it, you really have to understand what each module is worth for, or you can do with it, or what it is capable of. And then you have to decide. So it doesn't make you have 4 filters. If you only use one of them, then just stick to that one and use it. And I guess for a tapestry on the wall, it's cool to have a large modular with tons of lights and LEDs and whatnot. But for a work, I guess, it's cool for the tapestry. But
but it differs, to be a collector is another function and another job and another performance than to be a producer.
Sure.
And, that's, you're making music, and we have a high respect against that. And you're really making good music. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, brother. I learned at the very beginning of my so-called career, I worked with a very talented electronic musician called John Fox, and he was hugely experienced compared to me, because I think he'd made 3 albums already, and I hadn't really made a single album as a young engineer.
Yeah.
So he was like a great mentor, because he knew at that stage, to me, he was so far ahead. And anyway, he had the idea to make a minimal electronic music record. And he had been in a band called Ultravox, where they'd been in bigger studios with big producers. And so he was art school trained, so he was thinking about the processes all the time. So, and I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but his idea was to make a minimal record. So he came to the 8-track studio. The 24-track studios already existed. He came to the 8-track studio, which I happened to be working in, and he came with 1 synthesizer, 1 drum machine, and 1 string machine and a flanger. And surprise, surprise, it turned out to be a minimal record, because he only had 8 tracks, and he only had a tiny collection of synths. And at that, like 10 years later, I look back at that and I understood the vision of limitation,
Yeah.
which he'd implemented it. You know, he didn't say, okay, I've got a big budget, I'm going to go into a huge studio with loads of synths and make a minimal record. He said, well, it's a minimal record means minimal toolkit. And it worked really well for him. And for me, actually. It was the first record I worked on from beginning to end, so it was a joy.
Cool.
Yeah, about the reduction, I recently read a nice story about his name is Samuel Shepard. His project name is Floating Points.
Yeah.
And he wanted to start with analog synthesizers. And he found something about Buchla. And he thought maybe it's a good idea to just call them up and to get an advice where to begin. And yeah, it came so that he met Don Buchla himself on the phone. He was just there. And he said that Don Buchla took his time and explained all the systems and then gave him the advice. Well, I think it's a good idea if you just begin with the complex oscillator. And then he sent it. Just try it. If you like it, you keep it, then you can buy it, or you send it back. That's a cool story.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And now, when you hear his music, he's making so tasteful, modular beats. This sounds really great. Awesome.
I have a question. Don Buchla's system, by the way, the current Buchla systems, they are on the show here, introducing the easel and the 200E system, but the 200E system is already kind of a digital one because it's storable. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my little bridge to get over to Gerhard Meyerhofer, because he told me when I asked him about the big Moog modular, because Moog was making the first analog modular system in 5 rack space. I don't know when, 60s or so. And you know, they are still existing. He's the biggest collector of those, or he used to be, whatever, I don't mind, or one of those, but you know, they still exist and they still work. And I asked myself on this show, and in front of the so-called Bauteilkrise, what's the word for it? The spare part crisis that all manufacturers have. What is going on with, is it good to have a limitation of spare parts, you know? Because what just happens in the world, that these spare parts are not available anymore, leads us to every manufacturer has to increase the prices, because first of all, the automobile industry is taking away all spare parts, and then the gun and weapons industry is taking the rest if they're good enough for them, and then there's nothing left for the synthesizer idiots here sitting, and then they want to build up and there's this transistor is missing, I can't do it. And that happens all the time. So I thought it's perhaps bad for my shop, but it's good for the world, because it's increasing at the same time the respect against the stuff that is already existing, because there is already 4 oscillators in the basement or below the table or whatever in every other second studio, and then they buy the 5th one because they have the impression that this would help to get it even better. And as we all agree, that is not true. And Moog systems still exist from 1960, 60 years ago, 50 years ago. Okay, they are really old. And if I see all these components now, and if I look onto these very tiny things, I thought, will this survive in even 3 years or 5 years, you know? How far is this going? And Gerhard was telling me then he's the one getting over these new-made Moog modular things to make them work for the European clients if something is wrong. And perhaps you can give us a little insight about what's the difference between the old stuff and the new stuff.
Well, there's probably a very long story. What's the difference between the old stuff and the new stuff? I'm in love with the old stuff, but sometimes I get the impression that it's kind of a religious discussion between analog and digital.
Where we were.
I consider myself a tool maker, like Bob Moog was saying. He's a tool maker, and he makes tools for musicians. But I also believe if you sit in front of a Moog system, like a 3P, for instance, it will force you to a different music compared to a Eurorec system.
Aha.
Because I think the man-machine interface matters a lot. The way you use the machine, the way you touch the machine. And also if you look at Moog modules, for instance, yeah, there is, sometimes I get questions from customers, why don't you build in an attenuator in front of the filter? And I said, because Bob Moog decided not to do it, and I'm doing it exactly like he was doing it. And there's a certain reason for that, because a filter is a filter, and a filter is not an attenuator, you know. There is a special attenuator module. So it's, if you look at such a 5U modular system, you see the sound flow. You understand immediately how it works. And I think this is really impacting the situation. But, I mean, I can only talk about the sound source, how to generate the sound, and all the modules we are building, and you know, we are building the old Moog modules, are strictly analog. But is the sound still analog if I'm using the new fantastic digital delay from Gareth, or is it now digital? So therefore I'm saying it basically, from my point of view, it really doesn't matter, because you know, the musician or the composer or the producer, needs to decide what's the sound I want, you know, what's the quality of sound, and it can be a mixture between digital and analog easily, you know. For instance, if our version of the Moog 3P does have a link to Eurorec systems, because for me it was simply too much of a religion to separate both worlds. I think it's much better to integrate both worlds and work with both worlds. There are a lot of very good, excellent digital synthesizers, and there are excellent analog synthesizers. We are just building analog synthesizers. Nothing digital is involved, so I'm on the safe side here. But I think it's the decision from the musician.
But so we all agree in general it's not about analog and digital, so we can skip that discussion. It's about quality of tools, and build quality is the aspect to look on, and in the end the inspiration that we get from the single unit. But in the end every single unit has an inspiration because it's inspired by one like you or one like you making things for themselves, no?
I think from my point of view what matters a lot, components matters a lot. What components you are using.
This is a quality thing?
This, from my point of view, it's a quality thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's if I look at modern produced modules or synthesizers or whatever, so it's made by robots, more or less. So the components are made to be used by robots.
The components.
The components,
yeah.
and then
there's no alternative.
No, the point is, I think it's like I remember times when I went to a scrapyard of old cars. It was like the Volkswagen or something like that. You went to that scrapyard and you could get whatever you need to repair your own car. I think it's the same, similar with the old, not old, it's like the Moog or Synthwerk, and most of our modules. It's still, quote, quote, standard components. So not the posh stuff of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I believe that even if the chip crisis is getting worse, you will still get components you can use.
From the crap?
Sort of, yes. Or you still have now companies who have specialized, like with old cars, who are specialized on producing old components. So with the methods, the machinery that have been used earlier. If you look at very modern modules or consumer equipment like phones or something like that, because it's assembled by robots, there is no information on the value of that component on that component anymore. So you can't see anymore, well, is this a certain value or larger, or schematics, anyhow you don't have about that. And so I think it's more, if this one is getting sick, quote, quote, or dies or whatever,
Yeah.
you can just throw it somewhere. If you take the more, well, not so more commonly using common technologies of the 10 years ago, you can still repair them. And there are companies now who even create the old chips used in the Oberheims or sequential circuits of the 80s. So you can use those again, and they even are pretty good and say, okay, yeah, we know that you have these funny people who have still through-hole technology. So they have a chip they want to put in an old Oberheim. Okay, we produce that one in that format, but for the new guys who say, okay, no, we want to have surface mount, they produce it in both formats. So you have spare parts for the old stuff, and you can use it even with modern technologies. And I think that's, but I guess it will get more and more complicated to repair those things. And for a mobile phone, after 2-3 years, you say, okay, where's,
yeah, and that's bad.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
really horror.
Sure.
But there's another aspect. I mean, I agree with what you said about it doesn't matter. That's what I meant when I said hybrid earlier. I think most of us just work hybrid. We use it. We use all kinds of tools, and tape's awesome, and the violin is an awesome thing, and a 808's a fantastic thing, and you know, a digital module in a Eurorack can be awesome too. One of the things, okay, made by robots, I get it. A lot of the modern, in fact, that's one of IntelliGel's sales lines, right? Made by intelligent robots in Canada, I think IntelliGel saying. So they're proud of it. One of the things that got me into, I didn't have the money to get involved in the vintage world. I mean, I decided not to spend my money on the vintage synths, put it like that. So, because it just freaked me out. Not only, I get it that they're an investment, some of the vintage synths. I know you guys aren't talking about vintage necessarily, but when I got into Eurorack, the vintage stuff was very expensive. And not only was it very expensive, it was very expensive to repair. Not for you guys, because you guys know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. So if my System 100M went down, I had to find some genius mechanic in London or somewhere in Europe and send it to them. And one of the huge things for me about the Eurorack format was that it was relatively affordable. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's relatively affordable, and that's partly because it's made by robots. So it's a kind of a two-edged sword, you would say. I say, in it, you know, it's pluses and minuses on both sides. The Eurorack clearly boomed. You know, Dieter Döpfer's a genius. He's hit the spot somehow, like the MIDI guys did back in the day. Somehow he hit a spot, and it just boomed. And all the makers came in, all the little boutique makers, and all that's possible, I think, because of the robots. Because it's pitched at a price point that is acceptable to a lot of us, you know.
Yes.
I'm not knocking what I'm not knocking the big. I love the point to point.
What I think is again, it's a decision a little bit. It's probably, I'm not sure whether it's arrogant, but it's probably a decision whom you want to use to produce what you are doing.
Yeah.
So I think if I look at Europe, so like Germany or Austria or Poland, you still have small companies from the old days, quote, quote, who produce printed circuit board like in the old days and who have sources for components like in the old days. You can decide whether you use a module that is built like in the old days, because you are still the companies doing that. If you then say, okay, this is restricted to a certain volume, so if you want to sell 10,000 of it, that's probably not working anymore.
Yeah.
But we in Europe have still this opportunity. If you look into the, at least my impression or what I see, if you send everything to China for production, it's way cheaper than if you do it in Europe.
Yeah, but this is tasteless.
I'm just saying to draw the picture.
Yeah.
Behringer forever.
What? Who?
And
who you mean?
And what the consequence is a little bit, when I talk to people in the US, they say, why can't you, no, not why, you are producing still not very large amount of batches for modules. How can you do that? Yeah, a small company. Mine is in Bavaria, for example. So in the Bavarian woods, so even worse.
That's
so,
you.
But, no, it's not him.
No, something else.
No, but so if we in the US, no, we don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
I know that Dave Smith, so for sequential,
yeah.
that they pretty much do a lot still in the US, but you don't have it anymore. We in Europe, I think, are pretty lucky to still have small companies producing small amounts of modules or front panels or whatever.
And we should keep that alive.
Exactly.
But what I said, what components matter. For instance, our philosophy is everything needs to be built by hand, you know. The human interaction is important.
Sorry, go on.
And so we select a lot of components, you know. We treat the components with respect. We don't throw them around. We're using wires. We're using the old Moog frame, so we did it exactly, and therefore our claim is the spirit of Trumansburg, because we want to do it like the first factory in Trumansburg. This is our philosophy. I mean, this is just how we are thinking. I'm not saying that this is good or bad or whatever. This is just the way we are doing, and we think that therefore it sounds a bit different. And I'm not saying it's better or Eurorec is better or it's not as good as or however. It's just a different way of creating an instrument.
I think that's wonderful. And I had the experience of, Spiritual Friendship got invited to a week in the Moog Sound Space in Asheville, and it's above the factory where they're making the old modules, hand-wired. And that was profound for us. We would turn up in the morning, walk through the benches where there were like 6 people assembling the modules, go upstairs and use vintage and the very same modules that they were working downstairs, and the interface and the sound and the love in the module totally affected the records that we made whilst we were there in that time.
Yes, I can imagine.
It was a miraculous experience because we had no idea we were going to be walking through the workshop. The people in the workshop, the men and women working in the workshop, could hear, because we had the PA on quite loud, they could hear what we were doing all day. And we could, when we took a coffee break, we went downstairs and said hello and shared some love with the makers. That was amazing. It was amazing.
Cool. Yeah. Bob Moog said one interesting sentence. He said, if I remember correct, I don't want to talk about a spiritual relationship, but I think there is a consciousness between the musician and the components of the instrument. And for me, this has a huge meaning.
I'm sure that any violinist or acoustic guitarist would feel exactly the same way. Right. The strings, exactly. The wood, it all counts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Wonderful. It was a wonderful conversation, gentlemen. I think that was interesting for everybody. I hope so. And that was the core of the event. You know, we are sitting here and we are normally standing outdoors and making these talks, but that was really deep. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I would say let's go ahead and at the bar.
Can we go to the bar now? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we'll probably meet outdoors, and there's a concert of JakoJako at 7:30 in about 15 minutes. Yeah. So we go to the bar, get a drink, and then we stand in front of the stage and have a good time and have a nice evening. And we will have a few more hours to talk, outdoors, indoors, wherever we are. And I want to say thank you to Gerhard Meyerhofer, who's making modules, to Gerd Jallas, who's making modules, to Gareth Jones, who's not using modules, to be here. And suddenly they're all with a G. That has probably something to do with genius. So let's go ahead and have a genius evening. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you.
our main product is the C15. It's a synthesizer, and yeah, I will play some presets. Actually, I'm not a professional musician, I'm more a developer, but I hope I can demonstrate some interesting, let's say, aspects of this instrument. Later, I will give some explanation about what I'm using and what is new in this version. this was like a selection, a very small selection of what we have available on this instrument. Yeah, I would not try to explain, this is the sound engine and everything that's behind this. It's a digital synthesizer. It's based only on FM and physical modeling, and there's no samples or complex waveforms in there, just the sine waves. So if somebody is interested, yeah, please come to the booth or talk with me later. I would just want to mention, so what I was using to make this, let's say, an expressive or interesting performance, we have very high velocity dynamics, so we can really already do things with our fingers when we touch. We have pedals. You see my feet are most of the time on the two expression pedals or this sustain pedal. We can up to 4 pedals can be connected. And we have something more special. This is the ribbons. The ribbons are also displays, and when the pedal is connected to the same macro control, I can also see my foot position, which is very practical here on the ribbon, but I can also say, okay, I go to this point and jump there. We have a bender. This is maybe the wrong sound. So it's not like a pitch bender, which has a middle detent, center detent. But you can things like this. We don't have an LFO in there, so you have to move everything. What you want to be moved, you have to move it yourself. Yeah. That's about, let's say, how you can perform with this instrument. My last Gesprächskonzert here was 2019, and since then we have been quite busy developing new components, new features, and improving the engine and the whole instrument. There's an evolution going on, and what we did in 2020 was dual mode. It means we have the possibility to layer 2 sounds. That's what I have been using quite often here. Let me see. I'm sorry, I have to look it up. Okay. For example, this is a layer sound. So this is one of the parts, and the other part is. We also introduced mono modes, which we didn't have before, so you can hear this as a monophonic voice. We have 24 voices. We can run massive unison stuff that maybe you have heard that. And with the split comes also with the dual mode comes also the split. So I had this like a pad or atmosphere, and so now 12 voices are on the left side and 12 voices are available for something else. Okay, this year we have introduced MIDI, which is sensational. No, it's something, it was very much, let's say, discussed, but we decided to have an instrument without MIDI in the beginning because it's a performance instrument. It's something to play, mainly to play, and not to integrate in your studio in the first place. But of course, the sound engine and the quality of this instrument, also appeals to people who are, let's say, in the production area, in the film scene, and so on. And so we know that they were waiting for MIDI, so we have MIDI available now. It's USB MIDI, and for connection to a computer we need a little box, which is a separate device. And one other thing, as part of the package of this studio package, is the recorder. So there's internal recording going on all the time on the digital level, and so there's like a ring buffer, so we can see what I have played before. So this was what I played some minute ago. Let me play a little bit with the recorder. This is it records in FLAC files hours of audio. Yeah, it's compressed but loss-free. Yeah, this is actually it's a side effect. It's not the main purpose of the recorder to work like a delay, but it would be a delay of hours if you would use it like this. Okay, so thanks for the attention, and yeah, please visit our booth and have fun on the show here. Thank you.